2015 who stood for Parliament, stood for the National Assembly, and did not get through.
So shouldn't it be about level playing field? Because the truth of the matter is, if she had been able to get the primaries, using that instance, for instance,
yeah.
and you know, there was all a level playing field, wouldn't it boil down to the choice of the people at the end of the day? That's what that's the point I'm trying to make. Not about the quality of women.
Yeah. So I'm sure you want to come in. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Even when you talk about a level playing field, we're looking at gender equity, not gender equality. A lot of time people talk about gender equality, but we're looking at gender equity. Equity is ensuring that level playing ground comes to play. So because men and women are not on the same platform as we speak, I'll give you an example. So there's a report that says 60 to 75% of women constitute the workforce in rural area, and out of this number, only the men are 5 times likely to own a land rather than women. So while women are working on the farm, it's the man that owns the land. That's not a level playing ground. So already the woman is disadvantaged. So that boils down into everything that happens. And when we're talking about land ownership, it has to do with a lot of access and opportunities. For example, if you have a land, you'll be able to access loan and things like that. So a lot of women are not even on that level playing ground, and they are not able to play. So how can we bring them up? So do you think that the issue then should be about changing mindsets? Because at the end of the day, some of these things are traditional. Some people believe that women should not own land. Some cultures believe that women, and some cultures believe that women shouldn't even inherit land from their fathers or their mothers, as the case might be. You know, just wondering, how do we begin to affect mindsets? Yeah, so there are a lot of socio-cultural barriers. Yeah. But we also need to build capacity. That's when we talk about the education, building leadership. For example, my program builds leadership in these young girls. Because if you don't believe you're a leader as a young girl, then when you reach the age of political participation, you feel excluded. Do you understand? In order for these people in order for us to achieve inclusion of women in political participation, we need to start from when they're young, to build their capacities, so that people can choose quality leader. Because we're not going to compromise quality, you know, on that ground. So we want women to be able to come up, change the socio-cultural barriers, not just among women, even among the men. Because a lot of times we talk about women, we don't talk about men engagement. If the men sometimes don't allow these women, some of these women are married, some of these women they have fathers. If their fathers don't make them feel that they can do it, then it's going to be impossible. So we need that engagement from across sector for us to achieve that. Well, we'll have to take another moment. Now, when we come back, it will be our closing moment, and we'll talk about how the British High Commission is enabling. I mean, it's one thing to express a goal, it's another thing to be working towards it. When we come back from this break, please stay with us. It's our closing moment, and whether or not you like it, the conversation was heating up behind the scenes. Yes, British High Commissioner Paul Arkwright is still with us in the studio, and so is Mrs. Aderele. Now, let me just quickly ask you, it's our closing moment. What are you doing? Because you have said you want to see more women in Parliament, which is a fantastic idea. But what is the British High Commission doing in that regard? Are you going to be playing any role? Wouldn't it be seen as interfering, so to speak?
I don't think it's interfering if I'm encouraging a democratic process. Okay. I'm not interfering in. This is not a party political. Just
clarifying that, because some people might interpret that as interfering.
I would have thought all political parties think that it's better for women to be involved in politics. So I don't see it as party political. I see it as a natural thing that would actually improve Nigerian society. We've just been talking about, if you genuinely had 50-50%, and I know that's a long-term goal, I genuinely think this country would be better run.
High Commissioner, I want to come in here because, you know, Nigerians watching this may say, well, this is a pretty academic, intellectual conversation. Is it practicable in the Nigerian context? Let's take a look at the Nigerian political culture, where decisions are generally made at night, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Can a wife, can a mother leave her house at that hour and still engage in the kinds of high-level decisions that are taking place? If you look even at the National Assembly, for example, you find that it's wives of very powerful politicians, or sisters, or mother, or, you know, some sort of relation, oftentimes. Can you kind of bring it down to the real context of Nigeria and say, how is it practicable knowing some of these nuances of our democratic context?
Well, I go back to leadership. I think if there are leaders, and they mostly are men, and let's face it, here in Nigeria, who think that they need to change things in order to make it more accessible for women to get involved and participate in politics, then they can make those changes. Why do you have meetings at 1 o'clock in the morning? Why can't you have a meeting at, I don't know, lunchtime or 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever it might be? I fully accept. I'm not ignorant of the cultural, social barriers here, but I do think that leaders of political parties should really work harder to ensure that the framework, the opportunities are there and the structures are there. And practically speaking, to come back to your question, I mean, yes, it is DFID who are funding the Engine project. It is DFID who are funding or various other elements in which we're encouraging women to participate at the grassroots level. It's about grassroots activity. So I mentioned DFID funding for sexual assault referral centres, for example. So there's a lot of programming, and throughout all of the DFID programs, gender issues are mainstreamed. So we have to look at any of our partners who are working and funded by the UK, absolutely have to look at the gender element of everything that they do.
Let me quickly bring in Joy here. Joy, we have a gender bill which has not been able to get through the National Assembly. What impact do you think that would have on the work that you do if it's able to go through? Just quickly.
I think it will go a long way to ensure that there is education, there is employment and livelihoods for women, to ensure there is protection for women, all the things that we are pressing for during this 2008 International Day of Women. If the gender bill passed through, then all this will see that turnaround. And I want to re-emphasize, when we talk about gender, we're not just talking about women, we're talking about men, women, boys and girls, creating that enabling environment for people to thrive. And I would like to say that our work basically is focused on removing barriers. There are a lot of barriers that limit girls and women, and if these barriers are removed, and it's not one person's work, it's everybody's, we are all responsible, from the household to the community to the school to the private sector to the public sector to the whole country. We all need to remove barriers so that our girls can flourish and they can do better.
It's definitely a lovely place to live. It's totally out of time, but we have to thank you most kindly for coming on Sunrise Elite this morning. Paul Arkwright is British High Commissioner to Nigeria, and Mrs. Joy Aderele is Deputy Program Manager, Educating Nigerian Girls in New Enterprises. On days like this, I really want to hug my colleagues, especially my male colleagues, who are really fantastic support, and of course my dad and my husband. Well, thank you all for just always being there for women and promoting women's rights. And that's the show this morning. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Easy to support lovely women like you. I'm Ajuri Ngilale.
And several other women out there. Thank you for watching. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
I am Gimba Omar. And Neo Taigwe, and happy International Women's Day.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this program are those of the maker and do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, and endorsement of Channels Television.